Cody Parks, what's cracking?
Hey, I'm excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Of course, man. Welcome. It's great. It's great to have you back after 15 years. Or when did you do your internship here?
11 years ago. 11 years ago.
It was only that long ago.
Yeah.
Seems like a lifetime ago.
I remember writing you like a happy 40th birthday card.
Oh, God. That's 11 years.
11 years. There you go.
Yeah, that's really weird. I can't believe you remember that. Way to age me. Thanks.
No, still a good.
That's weird because I just turned 40, so it would be weird that you'd be writing me that. You must have messed it up with my 30th. Don't hit your mic bass or it'll sound like we're making a hip-hop album, which we could do, by the way. Yeah.
Start the beats?
Well, if you drop a beat, I'll lay down some rhymes. Yeah, we don't want to hear that. But glad to have you on the show, man. So for those of you guys that don't know Cody, which you probably don't because this is his coming out party, so to speak. So Cody did his internship here apparently 11 years ago and then went on to end up working as the director of training, which you guys have heard us talk about that position at a buddy of mine's gym. And per my request, by the way, so thanks for making me look good because he was like, man, the gym was in a tough spot, right?
Yeah.
And when you got there and I'm like, all right, I got a guy for you. He's super motivated. He's very numbers driven. He understands the business, right? I'm going to send him over, pay him well. And then lo and behold, like that, you basically, gave him that shot of energy and grew the business back and gave you the opportunity to buy it overall. So I look forward to walking away through your journey, if you will.
Well, thank you for having me on and even wanted to hear the journey. And I really just want to take a moment and say thank you. Like you personally, Rick Mayo, have done more in my life in the training industry.
Don't make me cry.
Training industry, just mindset and seeing what was possible and that I could make it a career. And I think once I go through the whole story, the listeners will kind of see why I'm saying that. But seriously, thank you. Like made a huge impact. Matt, Anthony, the entire team here at Alloy Personal Training really has made a huge mark on my life.
Appreciate that.
And I love where I'm at. I'm doing exactly what I visioned 10 years ago. So that's how I know I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And the visions just keep getting bigger and bigger. So
wake up every day excited to do what you do. So tell our listeners, and I held me apparently because I don't even know how old I was when you were here. So I might need a refresher at my age. Okay. When you were here as an intern, you were at Georgia State, is that right?
Georgia State University.
So tell me about the experience. Like you had articulated this to me at a different time, and I was like, "Oh, I'd like to hear that story live. I'd like other people to hear that." So tell me the story.
Well, I'll start with like my first experience walking inside your business. So I walk in, and the place is packed. Everyone's smiling, having fun, and you came up, big smile, and you're like, "You must be Cody," and I'm like, "Yes, like I am," and like, well, come on back. And he introduced me to everybody. And that was the first time in my life that I had seen, like, this is how personal training should be done.
Oh, okay.
This is how it should be done. Everything that I had envisioned years prior was actually happening. Like, it actually exists. And at that point, I did not know it existed because I had done a lot of things prior to that. One-on-one training, in-home training, big box gyms, things like that. I had no idea how I was going to make it a career. And no idea how I was going to be able to do what I love to do, but also make money at the same time. So that was the first experience I could tell that it was just a real deal. And I was so pumped. I don't remember what you thought of me the first time that you met me.
I don't remember.
But honestly, I just remember being like butterflies. Like, I got to be on this team. I got to be a part of this. I want this internship. And you accepted me in an internship. And then we rock and rolled for I think you had 450 hours. So it was 10 weeks, 450 hours, and I actually stayed 6 weeks after. I'm like, hey, Rick, can I stay around? Still have more I want to learn. You're like, sure, dude, whatever you want to do. And it was an amazing experience. Learned a ton of just business systems, what it took. There had to be steps in place to make a successful business. Every piece of the puzzle, every personality had a place. I remember that. I remember looking and seeing, man, everyone here, their personalities, their skill sets, who they are as a person, they all had a purpose that all matched the mission statement that you all were trying to do or that you were doing and truly helping people. So it was not a one-man show. At that point I was just doing one-on-one training. So I realized wow, if I want to make a bigger impact and help more and more people, it's going to require an entire team. And I loved that. I loved seeing how you were able to orchestrate the entire team and just provide this awesome product. And not only just for the personal training business, but any business, any customer service. I think all of us, when we leave a business, we say, did we have a good experience or not? And I remember thinking like every time people come in here, they have a great experience. This is the way business should be done. And I'm like, 25, 26 at the time. And so it was just really, really awesome to be able to see the blueprint of what could be done and should be done in this industry.
Oh, cool. God, high praise. Appreciate it, man.
But I've got to mention something.
Oh, God.
So,
here we go.
no,
There's the caveat.
But I wanted to be able to take it one little step back because that was not my first experience with your business. That was my first experience with you personally.
Oh, okay.
So I'm going to take you back. It's 2001. I'm 12 years old. I don't think you do this. I'm 12 years old.
I was not 12, by the way, in 2001, but yeah, that's cool.
I'm like 5 foot nothing. I'm fat, overweight, husky,
Really?
whatever you want to call it. I was. And 12 years old, my family's favorite sushi restaurant was like 2 doors down.
Oh, yeah.
Sonos.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah,
Right?
Yep.
It's wintertime, it's cold, we're walking by, and there's light coming out of this business. It's dark. There's condensation on the glass. And I go over and I'm like, what's going on in there? I couldn't see. So I like smash my chubby little face against the glass and I see all these people laughing and sweating and working out and having a good time. And I'm like, what the heck is going on in there? And so I called my parents over. I'm like, what is this? And they're like, oh, that's a gym. They're doing personal training. And I'm like, well, what is that? And they're like, well, that's where you go. You know, when you get our age, you start gaining a little weight and you want to look good and you want to feel good. So that's where you go to get healthy. And I'm like, well, dude, I'm 12. I don't look good and feel good. What the heck? So that was my first experience with your business. And I didn't realize it until I did the internship.
Right.
Oh, I remember that. But
that's
that
cool.
moment, it literally empowered me to understand that like I could do something about the way that I look and the way I felt. So from 12 until 18, 19 years old, it was just in the trenches learning how to get healthy. But that was my first experience with your business.
Oh, that's crazy.
12 years old.
I didn't realize you were a chubby kid.
Yeah.
Because you're so fit. I've
Short,
always known
chubby.
you as like super fit. Wow.
Well, we all have a story.
Now you're not short. You're tall-ish, but you're fit. No, that's crazy. Well, you're welcome.
So thank you.
I remember your little fat face on the glass, and I remember.
You know, I don't know if it was true.
That kid's going to be something.
I don't know if it was true, but I remember like everyone, it probably wasn't, but I remember everyone having like their shirts off and it was probably you, but I remember everybody being like ripped.
No.
And that's just what I remember. That's the picture I have in my mind.
We never were shirtless. For anyone listening, I want you to know, I never go shirtless unless it's a bathroom selfie. I'm kidding, but we never went shirtless in the gym, I don't think.
No, but in all seriousness, everybody was just having a blast, having fun, ripped, that's just what I remember. And I remember thinking at that moment, like, whoa, like I can totally do something about this. So that was my first experience with your business. So thanks for
so cool.
Making a mark all the way back to 12.
Yeah. So you did your internship here and then you were older for, like you said, 25, 26. Did you play baseball in between? Did I remember that right?
I played baseball, yes, my whole life. But where are you going with this?
Well, I thought you may have played pro baseball for a minute.
No, I did not. I did not play pro baseball. And probably the best thing that ever happened to me because I got to really find out what I wanted to do with my life at a young age.
Yep.
And I had a lot of buddies that did. They went pro and they played a lot.
A couple guys here, like Matt played a little bit, and then Jared, who's on our team, played for the Orioles for a while. It's like,
But it was a good time. It was fun, but I got to find out what I wanted to do at a young age. So 19 years old, I'm like going to college and everyone's like, so what do you want to do when you grow up? When you get older, what do you want to do?
Lift weights, bro.
And I'm like, well, I want to be a personal trainer. And there were so many naysayers to that.
Right.
So many naysayers to this personal training thing. How are you going to make money? Are you going to be a gym coach? Like, wait, what? Like, they just didn't understand it. But I had this whole vision and dream that eventually when I did an internship, again, that's why I'm so thankful for it, is because that literally was the spark that showed me I can make this a career.
Living. Yeah, exactly.
I can make this a living.
Yep.
And I've always had the entrepreneur spirit. So I've always been very aware that, financial wealth was very important for my life, my family's life. Any of my dreams wanting to come true, it was going to require finances and a sound business to be able to do those things.
We could just leave that quote out there for everyone that's a starving artist trainer that thinks it's dirty to make money. So, you just basically summed up what money means, right? Like you can't help people without making money. You can't realize your own dreams and leave any kind of financial legacy for your family without money. So it's like great to be mainly altruistically motivated by helping people, but I mean, you need to get paid.
100%.
Yep.
And I mean, I did it for free for like 4 years, all the way through college. I'm a personal trainer, working at a restaurant to make money to pay the bills. And just because I knew that I would figure it out, but really that was the way of doing it. One-on-one training, training at the apartment gym, parks, wherever, just didn't really have any systems around it or business model around it that would allow me to grow.
Before you leave that, one detail about you that I always found fascinating was that you worked at the Renaissance Festival.
No, Medieval Times.
Oh, Medieval Times. That was the same, right? Similar, but I was like,
Medieval Times.
You know why I liked it? Because I remember it now. I mean, it's coming back to me now. Because
good evening, my lords and ladies, and welcome to Medieval Times. My name is Cody. I'll be most loyal and hardworking serf this eve.
Right? Well,
that's it. That's all. But literally, you had like this little shirt.
You had like a blouse, like a man blouse.
Had a blouse. It was down.
Well, here's the thing I liked about it was, okay, you were like a dude's dude, right? Because by the way, and you may cover some of this, but Cody's like a fly fisherman. He was a guide in Montana. He likes to hunt. He's like a dude's dude all the way. But the fact that like you could make good money working at Medieval Times, but you had to like put your ego aside to a certain degree. Like you didn't mind jumping into that character for the end game, right? And there's a lot of people like, oh, like that's not cool, or you know what I mean? But you were just like, yeah, I don't care, whatever. It's cool. I have a good time with it. Make good money. It's like, I'm good at it. I'm like,
a ton of fun.
That's so cool.
In college, you got a couple $100 cash. It was 3 hours of your time. And
right.
I mean, you're in school full time, Monday through Friday. It was on the weekend job.
You have to be a squire for a couple hours or whatever that person is, whatever you call them.
And the kicker was they gave me $500 towards a gym membership.
They did?
They did. That was like
they want you to be a fit medieval
they were like, look, we want you to work out.
You're wearing a blouse. We need you to have pecs.
Yep. So that was very important at that stage in life.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, but I remember that. So I always remember thinking how cool it was that you were like, yeah, whatever, I'll do it. I was like, that's awesome. Because so much of business is that way, right? Like being uncomfortable or being comfortable being uncomfortable. And you have to like, every time you level up into a new role, you feel like a bit of an imposter.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that you were willing to go do something like that, it's like your tolerance for discomfort, at least temporarily until you get used to it, would be pretty high. That's a good sign long term. I remember thinking that at the time. I'm like, man, this guy's going to do something, because like if you can do that now and be uncomfortable, like getting into this role and playing this character or whatever, which clearly you're not. You're really good at it, by the way. Still, I would still cast you in my night movie. It was impressive. So I knew that you had the chops, right, to make yourself uncomfortable and grow. So it was cool.
Cool. Well, thank you.
All right. So tell us, then you did your internship here. You stuck around longer. You were a great intern. Loved it.
Mm-hmm.
Then you went to Montana, right? And by the way, all the time, and you may remember this, but like periodically you would just reach out to me because I had offered to you like to, anytime you wanted to have a conversation, you'd reach out every 6 months, 3 months, like when you were trying to figure out what's next. Be like, here's what I'm thinking. What do you think? And here's what I'm thinking now. What do you think? And then you're like, I'm going to Montana. I love the outdoors. I'm going to be an outdoor guide. I was like, all right, cool. Go for it. And then you went, right? But then you came back.
The last thing you said to me in the internship, we're doing like a little exit, whatever. And you said, hey, Cody, like I knew that I wanted to be in your role at some capacity. And I think you could tell that I was getting a little ahead of myself. And you said, look, you need to make sure you get as much coaching underneath your belt as you can, number one. Then become a director of training. Then you'll be ready for an owner. You're like, and this time you're doing a lot of consulting. You're like, I'm meeting owner after owner that just gets into the game, that thinks they can just do this thing, and they have no coaching experience. And it's taken them a long time to get going. And I remember that as like my blueprint. I remember going back and writing it down. That's exactly the steps that I needed to take. So I knew that I was going to be in this for the long haul. So that's why I went to Montana, was to just check out. I've been in school. You're doing school, 2 jobs. Feels like forever. And Montana was a great time to just reflect and really start building more knowledge base. So I'm taking tons of books and podcasts, and my routine every time in Montana, or every day in Montana, was we did a 5 a.m. farm workout. So I'm still doing training there. They found out real quick. I still obviously love it. So I'm getting a farm workout together with all this farm equipment every morning at 5, breakfast at 6, water every single plant. That was my job, water every single plant on the premises from 7 until 9. And all along I'm listening to podcasts about leadership and financial wealth. And so that's where it really exposed me to just even dreaming bigger, and that mindset and that, thermostat of wealth, what it should and could be, started growing. And then I would do fly lessons. Lunchtime, have lunch, set up for an event or a wedding, and then every afternoon grab the fly rod and go fishing and catch some trout. Made some friends with the cooks. Would take the trout in there and cook something for dinner every night. And like, that's what I would do every day for 6 months.
Right.
So by the time I was done, you've got all this knowledge. I'm like ready to run through a wall. I'm like, let's go. I'm ready to change the world.
Is that when you came back to Atlanta?
Yep.
Okay.
That's when I came back to Atlanta, and you were my first call.
Yep.
And said, hey, what do you got? And that's when the opportunity at Formwell with your buddy Rami became available. So I don't know. Do you want to tell a little bit about that? I don't know.
Yeah, of course. And Rami's been on the podcast, so anybody go back and listen. That was a really popular episode because he was super transparent about, his trajectory in the industry. And, I think it spoke to a lot of guys that have been in it a while. It's like you've been in it and you have like a downturn and it's so hard to get your mojo back, right? So when you reached out, I had already been in contact with Rami and he had just been through a tough spot in his business. And it was like right around that 2008, 2009 when the stock market crashed. So and he had just purchased his own the timing for him was terrible. Like he had just purchased his property and all these things were happening. And you just get tired. He and I had been in the business for the same amount of time, right? He was a good owner. It just sometimes these circumstances, just things happen to you. They're out of your control. And so, it was funny because he had reached out to me to say like, hey, what should I do? So it was the first time our friendship had gone from like just shooting the breeze to like more consultative, if you will. And so it was like, well, I've got a guy that did an internship here. And so I'd already worked with him a little bit on like these kind of programs and some of the things that we did well. And he's a smart businessman, but he was just like, look, he's smart enough to know like, all right, I need some help. Like whatever that is, like I need the juice. I need, a refresh. I need some ideas. And our business was thriving at the time. So he's like, all right, what are you doing? So credit to him for not having an ego and being like, well, I've been doing this for this many years. I hear that crap all the time. It's 100%. Like, it doesn't matter. You can have the same crappy year repeated 30 times. It doesn't mean what you think it says when you've been in business 30 years, right? If you've grown, great. But if you've done the same stupid things 30 years in a row, you've got 1 year of experience repeated 30 times, kind of different. So credit to him. And then you had just come back and reached out. And I know you had done your internship here. Like you said, you had all this newfound energy and knowledge about like what you wanted to do. And it was the next step that you knew that you needed that I thought would be a good fit. So I'm like, hey, I got a really good guy. He's super fired up. He knows his numbers. He can sell. He's just, a dynamic guy, and you should bring him in because he's got the juice, right? Like you don't have it at some point, me included, right? So it's like, well, you've got the juice right now. So matched you guys up and you were off and running. So you guys worked out something with a rev share and a salary. And to both of your credit, you navigated that new relationship and made it work, and it brought the business back. So like, you could say you brought it back and then with his help and vice versa. But it was like, I was just astounded that like somebody in his position could like pull up his bootstraps and get back to work. And that also that you would go from, okay, I've decided to do this, to go into a business that was not in the best way and help build it back, which says a lot about you too. So it was just, for me, it was awesome because I was helping a friend and helping you as an intern who I believed in, and then actually seeing it work. It was like a notch in my own belt just for me emotionally or personally. I was like, oh, it's so cool to see this happening, right? And then to fast forward to you eventually making a play to buy the whole thing from them, to buy the business. So anyway, it's an awesome story, which is why you're here. Yeah.
And I feel like the story of how Rami and I were able to turn that around could be a whole podcast in itself.
Yeah. Well, once you get your podcast rolling, you'll have to have Rami on. You guys will talk about the whole thing.
But we did a great job working together. It was a really fun time. I got to really push myself with the director of training roles. And I was so thankful that he gave me that opportunity. And, you believed in me and he believed in me, and I knew I just needed an opportunity. And so, I was really thankful that I was able to just be the leader in there without, so much overhead to where I couldn't breathe. And him and I did a great job. We had a lot of transitions to make because we came in and it was one-on-one training and CrossFit. So we went from one-on-one training and CrossFit to more of the small group, semi-private model, community team, not one rock star coach. Right. Everybody's on the same team.
Right.
That you preach and that you teach. And so that was a not an easy task, but it definitely required both of us being on the same page, knowing that that's where we were headed, and putting the right people on the bus and making it happen. And then a ton of hard work, perseverance, and following the systems, and it works.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. So now you're, it's even been more transition because I think everyone in the industry after COVID and just also for opportunities, in the verticals that we have. So, to let everyone know, Cody has the gym model that we were sitting on before we went to franchising, which is about 8,000 feet. You've got a lot of like layers. You do group training, which team we call it, but think about classes. And then you do personal training. You service that in like a 4 to 6, and you do maybe a little one-on-one. And there's like a lot of verticals in there, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when you look at the landscape of boutique fitness right now, there's a lot of competitors in the vertical that we would call team or group, and they're pretty damn good at it. And their whole brand is based on that. And so there's a lot of choices in market for that. And so while it's popular for the small segment of the people that we would get in for that, if I'm honest, our programming was better than anyone else's there, but our whole facility wasn't dedicated to just one thing, right? So when we looked at, all right, where's the gap in the market for us going to franchising, and for someone like you looking at where's my gap in the market moving forward with this business model, you made the same pivot that we did, right? Mm-hmm. Which is moving the entire business model to what we call small group personal training. So why did you do that, and what's your experience been?
Yeah, we did that mainly like we let the numbers, a few things. We let the numbers drive what we were doing. So we found that our team training, that boot camp model, those people just did not have as long. It was just such a high attrition. I mean, 10 months at $150 or $180 price point. And we're working our tail off. Like, it required so much energy to put on a team atmosphere. It's like putting together a big show, lights, music, action,
right?
Go.
Especially when it's coexisting with a personal training offering.
Yes.
It's so like hard to marry those two up, Yeah.
Yes. So that made me not get emotional with it when I saw the numbers. I was like, all right, this doesn't make any sense.
God, you just hit the nail on the head, because that's a lot of people, right? It's like you have all this sunk cost, whether it's even emotional sunk cost, until we do this thing.
Mm-hmm.
We're good at this thing. And it's like, a lot of people defend that thing, right, at the peril of their business, because they're so emotionally invested. They have this sunk cost, if you will, into this one thing. And it's like, okay, but if you follow data and you say, well, this vertical is the client that sticks around the longest, they pay the most, they're the easiest to service, and we quite honestly get better results here, that's kind of a no-brainer, a win-win-win all the way. But you still have to get around your own ego and say, fine, I'm going to let go of that then. And that's going to be, a small percentage of my clientele that aren't going to be happy, but I have to do it for the health 100%. Of the business, right?
And I'm glad you said, about results, because that was number 2. And the results, our average age is about 53 years old at our facility. And even before COVID and we made the change, I personally just hated the way our clientele chose to do team in their programming based on their goals. So I get, Susie, who's 53 years old, and she's got a bad hip, and she's like, hey, I want to, tone up, tighten up, get my strength up, and lose a little bit of this belly fat. And presenting her with options of, like my recommendation to her is, look, we need to see you 3 times a week for this full body strength conditioning work. And she may enter in there and enter into our business and start doing that. But then what was happening was she would see team going on, and maybe her friend was in there, and she would start doing team 3 times a week and personal training once a week. And I'm like, what are you doing? Like, you're not following the protocol that's going to give you the results. And it's the same lady that would come to me 3 to 4 months later, like, Cody, like my hip's really starting to hurt, and I've lost weight, but my body fat has gone up. I still have some jiggle here. And I'm like, yeah, Susie, like I told you, you've got to hit full body strength conditioning 3 times a week. Really focus on your nutrition and just go play tennis on those other days.
Right.
Quit
just
worrying
move.
about doing this with all your friends. Like, it's just not, I know it's fun and you sweat and you have a good time and it's got good music. But that was the other part that really motivated us to change, was seeing the members doing it way too much. So we just had a hard look at who we served.
Right.
And it just made all the more sense.
Well, it's tough if you have somewhat of a competitor to your core value system and what produces results for clients, but yet you're offering something under your banner that does the exact opposite, right? And you're doing it because it's a lower price point, so you're hoping to catch that vertical.
Mm-hmm.
But there's not a lot of integrity around that over time. And when you start to notice that, like, well, clients that do this, they get more beat up. They don't stick around longer because of the mechanisms, right? There's not as much accountability. You don't have to book sessions. I mean, all the things that go along with classes versus personal training. Then you finally just come to the realization, like, why are we doing this again?
Yeah,
right?
It just didn't make any sense.
Right. Yeah. So you pivot to a full small group, which is cool. So for anybody listening to this, like if you're a potential LOA personal training franchise owner, it's like, here's a guy who did an internship here a million years ago who I wished I had the Alloy franchise up and running because I would have given him one because he's a baller, right? But at the same time, he landed in a business that was a perfect parallel, and he's basically speaking back to me and you and everyone listening that this is the relevant model moving forward. Like, you know it, right?
100%.
Yeah. So what's next for you, man? Obviously, the business is coming back.
Yeah.
Things are going well. You run a really tight ship. Like I know, like I mentioned, I know you're, Rami, and he always bragged about how good you were and how good you were with budgeting and, how culture driving and with clients. And so you've got it nailed. So obviously it's a 20-mile march now. You just got to go do the basics well forever, which is also a challenge in and of itself, but you'll do well with that. Mm-hmm. So what else are you working on?
So yeah, I mean, I'm absolutely loving what I'm doing as a business owner and being able to be in a business that helps people. So we're still building up our community, getting the right people, not the right people, but more and more people, because with bigger dreams comes more people that we need. So truly need more people that want to follow in that same mission statement of helping people find freedom through fitness. And that's what I've always believed, and that's what I want to do. So I definitely building up this business model more and more and more. I've moved myself more and more away from the business. Recently diving back in with COVID to help build up that little bit that we lost, which we still remain profitable all the way through COVID.
Yeah, I know.
Following your systems.
Awesome.
So that's
credit to you, man. And, it was a tough year. It tested a lot of resolve. So. Yeah,
it's not as much ROI as it was when we purchased it, but holy smokes, like we still made it through. And there's gyms all around us going out of business.
Right, and you're still making profit. So.
Yep. So thankful for that, but building that back up to where we were as of last year. And then I really want to start. I have a dream, so I'll just throw it out there. But
do it. Make it public.
I know. Like I really picture this whole Freedom Through Fitness brand being in all the school systems, in churches all around the world, and being able to give them the tools necessary to take care of their lives. Because I just know it's not taught in our school systems.
Right.
It's not taught in our society. Still well over 50% of the population's obese, probably well over 80% now. And I just have a heart for that and heart for the people. So, you've been talking to me about licensing and, the whole license model of how I should license it and build that business model inside churches and school systems. So starting to put some legs on that and awesome. Really just going after the ones that are around our facility right now and our closest, network. But I really want to see that up and running. And to do that, I've got to be able to step away from my business, which I can, and to be able to work on that. So
it seems like the natural trajectory too. Yeah. And that's awesome, dude. I love it. And I can tell your heart's in it. And anything that you have that much passion towards, because you're systematic as well. So if the passion will get you up and motivate you to keep working hard, because no matter what it is, it takes hard work. But you're also very data and analytically driven in the way that's like, all right, well, this doesn't work because, these metrics don't match up or whatever that is. So I think it's got legs. I really do. And I've told you this before, but I think there's a gap there. I think a license would be a good model for you.
Yeah. I'm excited to learn about it.
Well, you're doing the right thing, right? You put it in a couple of places, you stress test it, you see what works, what doesn't. It's just like going back to like a brick and mortar model. Now that you have that nailed, you just have to keep pumping away. Mm-hmm. But that'll be your stability while you build this other business. Same trajectory we have with licensing. Right. It's like, all right, well, here's another thing. And then that we parlayed that into, 2,300 gyms worldwide. And it's like, well, this is interesting. It's like, well, why don't we do a franchise? But we wouldn't have been able to look at franchising hard. So who knows where one thing leads, but it's interesting that you're, on the same path in a different parallel world. It's like you're kind of on the same path that we had, right? Which is cool.
Yeah. And the dream, it's so big that it's a little scary, makes you nervous all at the same time. I know it's going to require more people than just myself. And that's what excites me. I talk to my wife about it all the time. We talk about it. And I'm like, wow, I'm so nervous about it and whatever. And she's like, if you're not getting nervous about something, if you're not have a little bit of butterflies in your stomach, you're not doing what you're called to do. Right. So just use that as a green light that let's go, let's do this thing.
Yeah.
So,
and I mean, what's your alternative? Don't try it.
Yeah.
Right.
Let's go. What are you going to do?
Yeah. As long as you mitigate whatever the worst downside is and you could live through that, which in this model, really, it's just that it wouldn't work and your time and energy would be gone. It's not like you're investing a whole ton of money on the front end. I mean, you're shooting cannonballs right now, right? Until you find your range, and then you can put all your money, gunpowder in and shoot a cannonball over there, right? Yep. So right now, finding your range. But yeah, I love it, man. So I don't know what else to say. Cody Parks, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for coming on, brother.
Thank you for having me on the show.
All right, buddy. Good luck.
Thanks.